Our reading for today comes from the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verses 1 through 9 and 13 through 17. The woman and the dragon. A great portent appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pangs, in the agony of giving birth. Then another portent appeared in heaven, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his head. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. Then the dragon stood before the woman who was about to bear her a child, so that he might devour her child as soon as it was born. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was snatched away and taken to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, so that there she can be nourished for 1,260 days. Michael defeats the dragon. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back, but they were defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. The great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Word of God, word of life. Thanks be to God.
I think I don't need a step stool. One moment. There we go. In 1998, St. John's Abbey and University in Collegeville, Minnesota, undertook an astounding project for the new millennium. They commissioned Donald Jackson, a British calligrapher, the official scribe and calligrapher of the Crown Office of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, in fact, to oversee a handwritten and hand-illuminated Bible. Using the ancient techniques of vellum and ink preparations and modern design and layout techniques not available to the scribes of the original hand-lettered and illuminated Bibles created before the Reformation, what has resulted is a Bible like no other. It is up at St. John's for viewing. You could go up tomorrow. It's absolutely worth the trip. This is the first hand-illuminated Bible in 500 years. It unites an ancient Benedictine tradition with the technology and vision of the 21st century. It's a work of art and a work of theology. The completion of the project was in June 2011, with a special Mass at the Benedictine Abbey to celebrate at St. John's. By then, I was in love with this Bible, awestruck and amazed. Portions of it have traveled the world and been displayed in museums and places of worship, offered as an invitation and a reason to get to know other cultures, faith traditions, and holy text scholarship. This extraordinary project overlapped with the beginning of my pastoral ministry. My in-laws got me the 7 reproduction volumes, one each Christmas, as they came out. I have all the commentary books on the St. John's Bible, and I could talk about this Bible until we need to leave tomorrow morning to get up there by 10 o'clock. But I won't. I just want to show you a few of the illuminations and then unpack the illumination for this morning's story of the woman and the dragon, found in Revelation chapter 12. Most pages look something like this. Handwritten, remember. A team of scribes who had to match their calligraphy to each other's, who had to scrape off mistakes, or if that didn't work, start over. But then some pages look like this. This is the story of Sarah and Abraham. We have a high-quality reproduction of this hanging in our living room. I love it so much. Notice the menorah, the candelabra our Jewish friends and family use during Hanukkah to celebrate the light and God's faithful presence and goodness. Here it is used as a family tree. This is a depiction of Sarah and Abraham's promised family, as many as there are stars in the sky. This is the illumination for Matthew chapter 1, which you may remember is one of the genealogies of Jesus. It's an echo of the Sarah and Abraham illumination with the use of a menorah. All those names, all those hard to pronounce names in Matthew chapter 1 are included. When I use the Bible with kids, I teach them that the gold leaf in art, which, yes, is real gold, means that God is at work and present in the situation that is being depicted. This is the illumination for Luke chapter 2, the Christmas story. Look at all that gold, the presence of God. The angels and their song, the Holy Family, the shepherds, the bold gold coming down, God coming down to live among us. And somehow it foreshadows a cross. This is the illumination for the resurrection in Luke. Notice the reprise in design with the extra gold leaf. Again, God's presence so bold and bright. So that's a little background. Now let's get to Revelation. This is the Alpha and the Omega. And here is the illumination of the 7 churches. Notice that each cross on top of the churches is different, representing the main branches of Christianity: Latin, Greek, Coptic, Ethiopic, and Syrian, and the differences in the art of the cross in the last 2,000 years. This is the Holy, Holy, Holies. I love this so much. Looks like flags waving. And this is the spread for the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. There's a lot to look at here, but I want to tell you is that the majority of the image in this spread have appeared elsewhere in the St. John's Bible as illuminations of other stories. Then there's some modern additions: oil rigs and tanks, streptococcus bacteria, and nuclear reactor symbols. There's a rainbow imagery to remind us of the story of Noah and God's promise not to wholly destroy the world. There is a claim throughout the illuminations of the St. John's Bible, and I think in Revelation itself, that this last book of our scriptures is the culmination, the summation of the entire Bible, and that it has something to say about our present time as well. If you read Revelation in a good study Bible, you will notice that there are a ton of cross-references to other biblical stories and verses. The St. John's Bible emphasizes this by cross-referencing in the art, which I think is brilliant, inspired even. Part of the reason it is so hard for us to understand Revelation is that it requires a pretty fantastic level of biblical literacy, which many of the original readers and hearers likely had, but which most modern readers do not. But Donald Jackson does, apparently. He probably also had many advisors. And that brings us to the story for today, the woman and the dragon, Revelation chapter 12. I read many commentaries this week on chapter 12. Some said that we can read the story and see the woman as Mary giving birth to Jesus, who is threatened by the dragon. The dragon would be a representation of evil, Satan, anything that stands between us and God. Other commentaries insist that the woman is the church, and as the church, she gives birth to Christ, because the church, of course, is the presence of Christ on earth, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered. In this reading, the woman, who is the church, is threatened by the dragon, and at the time Revelation was written, the forces intent on destroying the woman and the child, the enemies of Christianity, would be the Roman Empire. Here in 2023, those evil forces might be seen as anything that hinders the proclamation of the gospel and the spread of God's dominion here on earth. Perhaps the sin we carry with us as individuals, and in our systems and in our culture and our history. In both ways of reading, God protects the woman, protects the child that she births, protects the church. We can hold both of these ways of reading together, I think, because we're smart. And if I've learned anything about studying Revelation, it's that it's meant to broaden our imaginations and enlarge our theology. So here is the illumination of the woman. Just look for a moment. I know it's hard to see the details when it's so far away. I did bring this volume of the St. John's Bible with me today if you're interested in looking at it more closely after worship. Most of the books of the St. John's Bible are collaborations between several scribes and illuminators. But Donald Jackson himself decided to both write and illuminate Revelation himself. He used symbols and motifs present in each of the volumes that came before, echoes of the rest of the Bible already present in the text and now illuminated for us in the art. For the woman, who's often seen by modern readers as an empowering image of strength and courage, Jackson layered a lot into her illumination. She is described in royal astrological terms. She has power over the moon and the stars, and therefore the entire cosmos. She wears a crown, signifying her royalty. She is pregnant, and she is confronting a serpent trying to devour her baby, who is soon to be born. Her hand is on her belly, showing her protectiveness. As a side note, Jackson had his wife be the hand model. The text does not tell us a lot about the woman's state of mind, but Jackson paints her face with power and determination. She does not look afraid or desperate. She looks ready, fierce. Donald Jackson sets this woman in chapter 12 in solidarity with many other fierce women in the Bible. But you have to know where to look. And I, because I have all those helpful commentaries, know where to look. The serpent, the red dragon attacking the woman, that's the middle picture, is the same snake that tempts Eve in Genesis. You can see it slithering through the garden on the right. Look for that red. And almost around Eve's neck, there on the left. What's different is the head of the dragon. It's a composite of other deadly monsters and other stories illuminated in the Bible. It represents persistent evil confronting again and again eternal goodness. This is not an evil that can conquer the world, but it's an evil that's always out there, underfoot, ready to strike. The woman's headdress is the headdress worn by Queen Esther when she saved her people. It's a warrior's headdress. What she is wearing is both the garment that Mary Magdalene and the garment that Jesus wore in the illumination of the resurrection in John's Gospel. It has a bright rainbow-colored background so that we might be reminded of that promise to Noah. And if we were Catholic, also Our Lady of Guadalupe, the defender of the poor. Her face is the face of Mary Magdalene and the woman who anoints Jesus. She has the dark skin of an indigenous woman. By using symbols of these other biblical women, their stories, their complications, their courage, Jackson creates an image for the Revelation chapter 12 woman that might embolden women and the entire church today. We might see the woman in chapter 12 and feel called anew to be of good courage, to love extravagantly, lead smartly, and protect what is within us when we are facing the serpent, the red dragon of our times. The evil 2,000 years ago and the evil now is different only in details, not theme. Still, we deal with war, injustice, gross power plays, poverty, and inhumane treatment of those who are most vulnerable. Still, we as the church are called to rise up, to look at ourselves and each other and summon our better angels to deal with the dragons we face, to be God's hands in the world and do the work that needs to be done in our corner of God's creation. There is so much I do not understand about the book of Revelation, but I think that like Jesus' parables, Revelation invites us to wonder and wander around in the Bible, which is the story of God and God's people, of course. These stories loop around and within each other still. It feels like not much changes sometimes. The red dragon seems to slither through millennia. But the other thing that does not change is God's steadfast love and grace. And that would seem to be an overall theme of Revelation, despite its reputation for doom and gloom. Read it before discounting it. Like our parable this morning illuminated, God's dominion, God's love and grace, God's fulfilled purpose might start small, but it is so much more expansive and lovelier than we might suppose. It's here, and it's not yet, and we're invited into that mysterious gap to be a part of all that God is doing. Thanks be to God. Amen.